Hello guys, this is Octavius with North American Archery. Thank you so much for tuning into our channel. Today I got something special for you, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the Super Kodiak by Bear Archery to the 59 Kodiak by Bear Archery. Both of these bows are really awesome bows, but there's several things we need to cover in order to make a fair comparison between the two. Now, you might be somebody in the market that wants to buy one of these bows, so I want to give you a fair shake on either one. Both bows I've owned for quite some time, and I've used them quite a bit, and I generally have some feedback that can really help you if you're in the market, or if you're just someone that wants to know more about these fantastic bows by this great bow company. First thing I want to do is I want to tell you that they're not strung up yet. I just wanted to kind of give you a look at each one of them. And first thing I'm going to do is give you a brief history on how we got to this point from the 59 Kodiak to the Super Kodiak. And it's not a history that is uncommon to a lot of companies that are very innovative like Bear Archery is. You see, a lot of times, guys, we think that when you have a bow like the 59 Kodiak, that's iconic, right? This is an iconic bow that's taken a lot of animals all over the world, not only by Fred Bear himself, but also by people like me and you. When you have a bow like this, you think that this bow just appeared on the shelf one day at a local dealer in the 1950s. Well, that can't be farther from the truth. It took a long time to get to this point. Fred Bear had a lot of trial and error. You see, Fred Bear was born in 1902. Okay, so in 1902 is a different time period in American history. This is right in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, or I should say in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, and you start having automobiles, you start having manufacturing companies, you start having these type of things emerge. And about time Fred Bear is a young man, he has been influenced by sales in his family, as well as manufacturing in his family as well. And so he had a little bit of both. He was able to do sales, he was able to work leathers, he was able to know how to do marketing, and he was very much of an innovator or an inventor. So he began to walk into things thinking, how can I make them better? It wasn't that Fred Bear invented the recurve. Actually, the recurve was invented thousands of years ago and probably was a horseback type of weapon when these recurve limbs was actually used in Asia and different places all over the world. Nobody knows exactly where and when. We just know that the recurve bow, contrary to popular belief, wasn't invented by Americans. And so the thing is that the bow that we see today has emerged in American culture by several different bow makers. You had Damon Howitt had one in the 1930s. You had Hoyt that had one in the late 1940s and early 1950s, and then Fred Bear started making them in the 1950s. See, Fred Bear was really a person that was impressed by a person named Art Young. Art Young was an individual that had an immense amount of impact on American culture and American psyche when it pertained to bow hunting. Even though Fred Bear is the one well known for being the father of modern day bow hunting, Art Young impressed Fred Bear because of all the polar bear hunts, the grizzly bear hunts, the bow fishing that he did. And Fred saw that on television, he saw that in catalogs, and he wanted to be kind of like an Art Young. Art Young was bringing bow hunting back to the surface in American history, in American everyday life, because somebody had to do it, because you had people running around with rifles and shotguns, because that was the easiest way to put meat in the freezer. So you had to have somebody bring it up, and Art Young or Arthur Young got with an Native American people and was able to develop that skill set. He had an English longbow, but a lot of the bow hunting techniques that he developed was impressed upon him by Native Americans. Now, when we came over here, I should say English came over here in the 1600s. You had people with English longbows, and they would go hunting with those. But for the most part, as soon as guns were on the scene in America, which was then muskets and stuff like that, you didn't need to go bow hunting. And even today, do we really need to go bow hunting with this? We don't need to go bow hunting. So I want to give you a brief history on that because it's very important. Then you got in the 1950s, Fred Bear introduced the Kodiak line. Okay, so in Fred Bear's journey, he had the Kodiak line kind of getting developed from 1950 to 1959. It wasn't like we got to the 1959 Kodiak that we see before you today. It took a little bit of time to get to this point, okay? And you got to remember that when you go back in time in the early 1900s, most people were going with an ASL style longbow or an English longbow. Even Fred Bear in his tournament shooting and his hunting and in his bow making early on was highly influenced by a longbow approach or a longbow design. The 59 Kodiak is no exception to that rule. This is definitely a longbow person's bow. It's definitely something that somebody that wants to go from a longbow to a recurve, you want to shoot this bow because they designed it with that in mind, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But as time progressed, you go from 1950 to 53, Kodiaks had little changes to them by Bear Archery, and they made them in a 62 inch, a 64 inch, and a 66 inch. And then in 1954, Fred introduced the first working recurve, and it didn't look just like this, but it was similar to this, and he made it till 1956. And it had a double shelf on it, so you could shoot it on the left side or the right side. So you could buy one bow, and a right-hand shooter and left-hand shooter could shoot the same bow. So it's pretty innovative for that time period. And then in 1955, you got the brown glass that you can see on here today. This brown glass got on there in 1955, replaced the beige color, I believe it was, and on the bow limbs. And it was an awesome look that it had at that particular time. And then it went to 1957, they went to a single shelf on the riser. It was no longer a double shelf on this bow in 1957. Then it was center shot, it was easy to tune your arrows, and it had a maple riser, brown glass, and it had that iconic leather grip on it. But this is a 59 Kodiak. You see what I'm saying? It takes time to get to this point. So then you get to the early 1958 is they had white glass on it, and they called it a soul belly because the riser itself had a curvature right here, a curvature that curved back to the shooter. That's why they called it the soul belly back in 1958, and that was another innovation in the direction of the 59 Kodiak that Fred Bear did. Now this was also the favorite bow of Fred in most of his shooting up until the Super Kodiak. He shot record animals, world record animals with this bow, like the stone sheep in British Columbia. And it was something that on all his magazines, if you look at it, he's pushing this bow because he believes that this bow is the future. And it was called in many of the catalogs that I saw that it was the king of all hunting bows. And it still, in my opinion, is. So then you get over to 1959. And 1959 is when this bow came out, right? But early on, it came out like the other ones, but then it started to introduce exotic hardwoods, okay? This bow has babinga in it. This bow has rosewood in it. This bow has Purple Heart in the riser. It became to me more of a beautiful bow and not just your standard bow woods that you could get here in America. They actually got bow woods from all over the world to get into this bow. So it's a very, very beautiful deluxe bow when you bought it out of the catalog. And then it had, this particular bow had rosewood, Purple Heart, brown glass, and it had a copper coin in it. You can see right there, it has a copper coin right there in that riser right there. If you can see that on camera, that copper coin was something that started in 1959. Fred wanted to make sure that you knew that you were buying quality and that this bow was something that was going to last for a long time. And then from 59 all the way up until about 1964-ish, you had the same style of Kodiak, okay? And when I looked through the catalogs in 1965 is when this shape right here took hold of the catalog, and you start to see the shape of that bow is different than the shape of the 59, right? So this is the Super Kodiak and this is the 59 Kodiak. So you saw a difference in the catalog, but when I was looking at the 1965 catalog, I noticed that they didn't call it the Super Kodiak in the catalogs until 1968. So there was a time period there where they made the switch and they discontinued building this, okay? And they went over to building this shape and they called it this Super Kodiak. Now they also had the Kodiak Special, which was a terminate grade recurve, and you could get it up to like a 70-inch recurve, because a lot of people were shooting those type of recurves back in the day in terminate shooting. Okay, this is before ILF bows. This is before the metal risers we see today in Olympic style shooting. So many people were still shooting wood in the 1960s. But in 1968, if you look at the catalog, it said Super Kodiak. You no longer had this bow in there, the 59 Kodiak, and Fred, this is his perfect bow in his mind, and then for some reason he moved to the Super Kodiak. I don't know why he did, but he did. And both of these bows are his most favorite bows he had ever shot, ever. Now, a lot of you will say, well, how about the Kodiak Takedown? The Kodiak Takedown is the child of the Super Kodiak. Okay, so it went the 59 Kodiak with Fred's favorite bow, then it went to the Super Kodiak with Fred's favorite bow, and then it went to the actual Kodiak Takedown, which most people would agree that the Super Kodiak design is going to line up with the Kodiak Takedown. And so in 1968, all over the catalog, you see that this bow right here is the one that Fred Bear is really pushing in his catalog. That's why it has a nostalgia as well, just like the 59 Kodiak has. So I wanted to make sure that you had a brief history on this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare these bows, not only with shooting them, but also a side-by-side comparison so that you can know what bow you want to go with. You might want to buy both of them, right, like I did, but what bow suits you the best, and that way you can make an educated decision. All right, guys, stay tuned. Okay, guys, here we are. We got the bows completely unstrung. Nothing is more pretty on a recurve when they're completely unstrung. Even when they're strung, they look good, but when they're unstrung, they look absolutely gorgeous. So what I want to do is I want to do comparison. So you got to remember this 1959 Kodiak right here, okay? If you can notice, it has a little bit more of a longer recurve. This would be closer to what's called a super recurve, and that is more of a traditional recurve when it comes to this bow right here, which is a Super Kodiak. Now the limbs, like I said before, has a brown glass. Let's start there. Brown glass on this 59 Kodiak. Okay. Then you got the fiberglass reinforced tips on there, so you can use a fast flight string on it. This is a 2018 to 2022 model. You got the Babinga right here. Babinga in the actual riser. You got the Purple Heart. You got the leather strike plate. You got the feather rest. You got the leather grip. Okay, a lot of people take this off. I leave it on. I'll replace it if it gets too nasty. This bow right here is a 60-inch AMO, 60 inches long, 55 pounds. Okay, you can see you got the rosewood in here as well when it comes to the actual edging of the riser as well. It's a double maple cord bow, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Now look at this grip right here. This grip right here is what's called a pistol grip. You can see that it's easy bow to grip. If you grab this bow, it just grabs pretty darn easy. Okay, you can put your whole hand around it. Right there is that copper coin I was telling you about that Fred put in the 1950s, so he could tell you that this bow was a high-end bow, and it definitely is. And that's pretty much it on this. This bow is a very fast shooter, very dead in the hand, and you're just not going to beat it. This is the father of every single recurve you see that's quality in American history. It's not even close. This was the Cadillac back in the day, and it still can hold its own. Then you go over here to the Super Kodiak, and as you can see, the whole shape of this is totally different, right? Whereas the other one had a more of a long bow appearance, this one's a whole different ball game. So no logo on the front, black glass. You can see that it's pretty basic. There's so many different models you can get. You can get deluxe versions. You can get fiberglass here on the front of this riser if you want to, but this bow that I picked up doesn't have it. This is probably the most basic Super Kodiak that you can get. Same thing right here. You got the double maple limbs right here. Okay. You got a pretty basic riser. You got the leather strike plate. You got the standard bear hair rest. Then you got your poundage right here. Your poundage is 50 pounds. It's 60 inches long, AMO. And yeah, the grip is totally different on this, as you can see. This grip is going to have a whole different feel to it, because when you grab this, it really puts your hand forward. Okay, it kind of forces you to put your hand forward, and then this bottom part where your palm goes really will dig into your hand if you don't hold it correctly. Also, a lot of guys will shave down the front of this because these edges right here on either side of this will begin to dig in. So some people sand this down and then put some lacquer or reseal this. That way it doesn't dig in. It doesn't bother me much. I just adapt my shooting. But that grip is different than this grip right here. This is, in my opinion, a better grip than that one right there. But that is just a comparison between these two iconic bows. So what I'm going to do now is string them up, and we can continue shooting them and do the comparisons. All right, guys, I got them strung up right now, and I got the Super Kodiak in my right hand, and in my left hand I have the 59 Kodiak. So what I'm going to do is do a little bit of shooting, and you can kind of see how they shoot and how I give you an honest feedback on what I think is their pros and cons depending on how it feels when I shoot. I've owned these for several years, so I do know a lot about them, but at the same time, when I shoot them side by side, well, I never shoot them side by side. That's the reason why I'm gonna give you what it is really in real time here. So let me set this down here, this Super Kodiak. Got it set down. Let me get my shooting glove on here. because this is the best way I can find. I've never done it. I've never shot these bow consecutively. I've always hunted or shot them by themselves, to take them off the rack and shoot them. Never compared them like this. So this was because I had several different people ask me about it. So that's the reason why I'm doing this video. So anytime you guys have any questions or anything like that, put in the comments and I'll see what I can do. So let me shoot. I got a target right here, let's say about 10 yards max. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot both of them, and we'll see. Wow. Dead in the hand. Oh my gosh. So awesome, guys. Wow. I haven't shot this bow in about 2 months. And every time I shoot this 59 Kodiak, it feels like a dream. Oh my gosh. It's just stacking them in there. I mean, jeez. One more arrow. Wow. This bow is amazing. So, soon as I shot this bow, it was like riding a bike. I mean, it's dead in the hand, it's quiet, zero hand shock, groups arrows. I mean, amazing. This is why this is probably one of Fred Bear's all-time bows, and the bow that he shot a lot, over 100 big game animals, I think the catalog said, was with this 59 Kodiak. So now, what I'm gonna do is shoot the Super. Let me set this down. Super Kodiak, here we go. Super Kodiak feels a little different in the hand, like I said, because you don't have that pistol grip. You have more of this high indexing grip, I should say. I think that some bowyers today would call this more like a medium grip, but I don't know all the terms, guys. I just know these bows pretty well. But basically, let me shoot this bow. You kind of see what I'm going to think about this. So I got, what, 2 arrows left. See here. Pretty good. Pretty darn good, guys. Definitely good. Wow. Pretty good. Wow. I mean, just awesome. When I shoot them side by side, they both shoot like a dream. I feel like the Kodiak shoots closer to a longbow than the Super Kodiak. But because this bow right here is tuned extremely well, it's just as dead in the hand as the other one. I gotta be completely honest with you. The other one has more power because it's a 55 pound, and this bow right here, the Super Kodiak, is a 50-pound bow. So when you compare them, you're comparing 5 more pounds of difference at 28 inches. So that bow is gonna feel a little bit more of a thud when you shoot it. But even with that, it's just as dead in the hand as this bow right here. And my draw length is at 29.5 inches. So I'm shooting past that 28-inch mark. So my thing is guys, either one of these bows is going to serve you right. I think that's the reason why Fred was able to go ahead and go with this Super Kodiak after all those years of shooting the 59 Kodiak and bows before that to get up to that point, because they're both going to do the job. In my personal opinion, the best bow that Bear Archery ever made, even unto this day, is the 59 Kodiak. This 59 Kodiak is iconic, and there's a reason why this bow like this, I think last time they had these brown glass ones with the purple heart on here, they were making them. They were like $730 in 2018, 2020. I think the cheapest I saw one was like 650 bucks. There's a reason why these are still the premium traditional bow for bear archery. But at the same time, if Fred was able to go from this one to the Super Kodiak, it stands to reason that they're both gonna do the job. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you over to the target right now in real time so you can kind of see how both of these group with the same. Now I'm shooting 55 with this one and 50 with this one, okay? And I'm standing about 10 yards from the target, so it's not that far. I got it. But you would think that the same bow shot all the arrows. Okay? Let me take you over here to it. Okay? Let me see if I can do this with the camera the way it is. Let me just walk over there. Bear with me. Come with me. I want to make sure you see this. Okay? Real quick. I think I can do it right here. Okay? And let me set this bow down real quick. I kind of want to show you this, man. This is important. So you kind of see what we're dealing with here on this deal. Look at that group. Look at that group right there. You got one. This is all with the same 10 yards away, two different bows. Right there. I mean, that's pretty darn good, right? And so when you think about, you know, picking a bow in traditional archery, you want to pick one that's going to do the job. And either the Super Kodiak or the bear or the 59 Kodiak, it's going to do that job. So I would say, because of how I like the nostalgia of the 59 Kodiak, I like the way it's more of a longbow feel on the 59 Kodiak. I'm always going to side with the 59 Kodiak. But they're both 10 out of 10. They're both paving the way for the recurves we shoot today. If you're shooting a custom recurve, it was influenced by the Kodiak line of recurves. That's it in the story. So I would give probably, in my ratings, the 59 Kodiak a 10 out of 10, and also the Super Kodiak a 10 out of 10, because when you get them tuned and you get the arrows flying out on the straight, as you can see, the same bows can do the same grouping with the same weight of arrows at anywhere, any distance you choose. So guys, I hope this video helps you. It's a little bit different than I normally do. I wanted to make sure I did this because I had several different people ask me about it. And I think that whatever bow you pick is going to be the bow that's going to get it done this season when you go out and get in that stand. All right, guys, thank you for your likes. Thank you for your subscriptions. Continue to turn on your post notifications. And remember this, you don't have to get ready when you stay ready. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later.